Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And with this one, I'm going to be bringing you my top 10 solo PvP specs for Shadowlands patch 9.1. This is going to be coming from the perspective of playstyle, fun, and from the factor of having no friends, sadly, or if you're going to be using LFG a lot and you're just looking to have a good time when you log into the game and you don't want to kind of deal with the social aspect, and you want to be playing more focused on your own, or you want to hard carry a game or a match. These are what these specializations are going to allow you to do. And remember, it's 10 of them, so the first couple might jump out a little bit to you. I've done my best to organize them into an order that I think is fair, and I'll be discussing as to how I did that while we go through them. So let's just jump into it. We're going to be looking at number 10 on the list of the top 10, and that is going to be, well, it might come as a bit of a surprise here, the Elemental Shaman. This is a specialization that really doesn't get talked a lot about at the moment for PvP, but if you're jumping into random battlegrounds, if you're jumping into a solo LFG playstyle in 3v3, the ability to completely erase somebody from the universe with Stormkeeper and Earthshock is going to allow you to really pump out a lot of carry damage, top scoreboards. It has sustainability with its ability to heal with Healing Surge and Earth Shield, and its mobility in Ghost Wolf. It feels good in random battlegrounds. Competitive viability, you don't see it a lot. It's not particularly awesome in 2v2, but it does have its place in 3s, and it has an amazing feel in random battlegrounds at the moment, or even potentially rated battlegrounds. You have good lockdown with Lightning Lasso. One of the things that's going to hold it back, though, is when you're getting overwhelmed and when you're getting swarmed by a lot of targets. It doesn't really deal the best with that because a lot of its spells are hard casted, although you have a lot of schools of magic to flip through, and you'll be able to get through them quite quickly. If you get swarmed, you can easily be overwhelmed. But going the Necrolord Covenant as Elemental Shaman is going to almost guarantee you the possibility of winning quite a lot of one-on-ones just by having Fleshcraft and your ability to Lightning Lasso, knock enemies away. It's definitely a really feels-good spec, but in terms of its overall competitive viability, its lack of instant healing is what drags it down to the number 10 position. Moving forward into the number 9 slot, we got another caster, another hybrid. We've got the Balanced Druid. Very similar to the Elemental Shaman, but without the downside of feeling like you're going to get swarmed. Whenever you get swarmed, you jump into bear form. You can tank out a lot of damage with instant healing on Frenzied Regeneration. You have still the similar playstyle with a knockback on your Typhoon. You can maintain damage over time effects to apply a lot of damage overall on the scoreboard and feel really good about it. And when you pump out a bunch of Star Surges in a row with each other, you're going to feel really good. This is a Covenant flexible specialization at the moment in my mind. It might be, other than Warrior, maybe the only spec in the game at the moment that you could really play any Covenant. If you're interested in just kind of having some fun with the game, I would recommend Kyrian as the best overall option. But if you want to go Convoke the Spirits for some one-shots, again, for solo PvP, it's going to feel good. Not going to feel too good into pet classes, though. They're going to absorb a lot of spells from the Convoke the Spirits. Ventir Balanced Druid has an insane one-shot if you're able to ramp that up and stack it in. But again, you're going all in into that specific one-shot moment, so you might regret it outside of that. But if you're looking for massive numbers, Ventir's going to provide that. And if you're looking for defense, durability, and one-on-one, then you really can't go wrong with Necrolord. That's going to increase your dueling capacity a lot on Balanced Druid. And then Kyrian just fits the mold for everything. It's going to be the most competitive option in 3v3. I think Boomkin's a tiny bit more viable than Elemental, mostly because of its synergies with Windwalker Monk for 3v3 Arena. Not the best 2v2 spec, probably similar very much to Elemental Shaman, which is why it's on the bottom of the list here. Amazing random battleground spec. It has a lot of flexibility in its talents right now. At the moment, it's just kind of lacking throughput to compete with some of the best specs in the game. It's Omega one-shot compared to a lot of the other specs, has a lot of ramp and a lot of build-up, and can kind of become disjointed if disrupted. But it has the advantage over the Elemental Shaman of having that defense in bear form and having stealth. And stealth is maybe underrated, but being able to sneak away from a fight, re-stealth, and get out of there, whereas Elemental Shaman's like, I can't really go anywhere. You're going to get stuck and swarmed, which is the main reason that Balanced Druid comes out ahead. Moving into the number 8 slot, we're looking at Beast Mastery Hunter. This spec just pumps out a lot of damage. It has the similar kind of strategies with the stealth options, with the Feign Death legendaries to remove all your dots. You're able to then go into camouflage, sneak away, or attack nodes, defend bases and battlegrounds. You're going to feel really good in battleground scenarios. You're going to feel amazing in 2v2. You will hard carry in 2v2. You will hard carry in 3v3. You will just pump out massive numbers. You might be wondering, why is Beast Mastery so low on the list? And I think particularly is, as a solo PvP player, it doesn't have the same type of sustainability. So if you want to be able to flex and help your team out when it comes to defense utility, that is when Beast Mastery is going to be lacking compared to a lot of other specializations in the game. But if you just want a big damage pumper spec that's just going to roll out there, top meters, and carry damage, then this is really kind of the one you're going to want to go for and all in on it. Again, its Feign Death legendary is great. At the moment, I'm really only seeing Beast Mastery hunters picking up Venthyr, but I do see that Necrolord is receiving buffs into the near future for 9.1.5 that might catch our attention. But at the moment, you can run the Venthyr legendary or the Feign Death legendary. Venthyr legendary specific one is going to get you a lot of damage. So if you're in battlegrounds, you just want to pump out numbers, that could be really awesome. If you want to get into dueling, then the Feign Death one is always going to be super valuable. But having that amazing shield to absorb hits whenever you feign death on such a significantly low cooldown is going to be where that slots in. But again, main drawbacks, doesn't have the ability really to heal allies or support allies so much. It's all in aggression. That's what holds it back, brings it to number 8 as a solo PvP spec. Now moving forward into the number 7 slot, we're going to start looking at some casters again. We're looking at the Fire Mage. Fire Mage has insane self-sustainability. I almost think that this specialization needs to be recategorized as a tank specialization. You're going to look at scoreboards at the end of games, and you're going to be doing more healing than healers a lot of the time. With Fire Mage at the moment, again, still a lot of players are running Night Fae Covenant, but you do have the option to go Necrolord. Necrolord is going to make you even more tankier. It's going to make you a lot better in duels, and actually, I think it might even be better in battlegrounds. Getting access to the Deathborn, turning into that Skeleton Mage, makes your fireballs AoE, which every fireball reduces your combustion, which is everything about this spec. And that's the main thing that makes it so much powerful than the other options so far on the list, is because when you pop combustion, stuff will die. It will guaranteed die, and your ability to flex with things in 3v3, you're a lot more flexible than the previous options. In 2v2, you've got Rogue Mage as kind of the staple composition if you're looking to carry in that. The specialization is a little bit harder to play. You've got to figure out your timings, when you want to line up your cooldowns, when you want to go in for crowd control, when's the time to play back and dampen. So it's going to take a little bit more in terms of that, whereas the other specs that I've listed so far can more or less just focus on getting their damage out, maximizing their damage, worry a little bit about crowd control, but as a mage, you're going to have to be heavily focused on crowd control, heavily focused on positioning. But if you really want to carry in a solo PvP space, or maybe jump into LFG and help some people out as well, Fire Mage is going to overwhelm people with combustion, and you are very tanky at the moment and do a ton of healing. Note that Triune Ward is getting nerfed in 9.1.5, so maybe this one would drop down on the list when we get there, but when we get there, we'll probably have to remake the whole thing anyways. But Fire Mage, definitely a great pickup for solo PvP. Moving into the number 6 slot, we've got Shadow Priest, another caster, and in my mind, the best caster at the moment for solo PvP. The ability to lock down a target with stun into silence, guarantees you're killing healers. The ability to combo that with a Psy Fiend, reducing healing by 50%, with healing being so high, you pretty much KO any target you want to when you have that combo. Now with the new Void Form to honor talents to just send out all this plasma void everywhere, disorienting everybody, it's going to allow you to stabilize when you're getting swarmed, which might have been one of the downsides. Having access to multiple cooldowns that guarantee you don't die, like Greater Fade to escape and Dispersion to escape. Having team utility and support through Vampiric Embrace and Mass Dispel is going to make you really desirable in a lot of team play content to get invited for groups. But as a solo player with no voice, I think it plays a bit better than Fire Mage, because again, you can focus on your damage, focus on your own setup, and not be particularly worried with what your partner is doing. But with a mage, it's much more about coordinating everybody together. And as a Shadow Priest, having the ability to sustain yourself as well as sustain your allies, you're not really going to go wrong in this spec. You'll top battleground meters. You'll win a ton of 1v1s. You have flexibility in terms of your covenants between Venthyr and Necrolord. Venthyr for big bang one-hit attacks. Necrolord for kind of sustainability, more competitive viability. Potentially better dueling, but it really depends on your matchup. If you're fighting hybrids with healing, then Mind Games actually comes in particularly well for the Shadow Priest. But it comes in at number 6. And we're now jumping into kind of a different realm, and you'll see where these specs start to be spaced out a bit differently now. When we look at number 5 and we look at the Enhancement Shaman. So Enhancement Shaman being a melee DPS, and this is now where we're going to start treading a bit. The main reason that this one comes in at number 5 is kind of its fragility. It's one of the weaker in terms of defense on melee DPS, and its other drawback is that it actually runs out of resources to heal. Limited mobility, limited resources, and fragility is why it's kind of dragged down in terms of melee DPS in terms of potential. But you still do have amazing one-shot damage with Doom Winds, guaranteed that you're killing any healer in a battleground situation. That's your hard carry moment when you activate Doom Winds. You can bait cooldowns by popping Ascendant, so the enemies will peel you and think that you're scary. And you can go with the Frost Witch build to kind of get the sustained damage as well. So you've got a lot of options and flexibility amongst the specialization in terms of selecting it. Again, its drawbacks are its limitations on mana. So once you've pumped out a bunch of those big heals, you might hit the brick wall where you can't keep healing. Like other melee DPS and other hybrids will just keep going and going and going and going. You're not the Energizer Bunny, sadly, at the moment, but you are still powerful. You definitely will carry in 2v2. 3v3, you're pretty limited at the moment. I've really only seen Enhancement Shamans playing with Warriors, and Warriors have a lot of other better options, but your dueling is going to feel really good. Your hard carry in 2v2 is going to feel really good. In Battlegrounds, again, much like the Elemental Shaman, you might start to feel a little bit swarmed, but the main reason that I think Enhancement Shaman is good is because you can just constantly healing surge yourself, utilize Chain Harvest, which again might be another downside of Enhance, is that you've only got one option. You can only go Venthyr at the moment and get the Chain Harvest, but that thing hits really hard and heals for a metric ton, so it's not like it's the worst option in the world that you've got left with. But it comes in at number 5. It's got limited options. It's got some clear weaknesses to it that these other specializations, as we start climbing the list, that you're going to notice don't have. Moving in at the number 4 slot, I don't know if anyone has seen this one coming. Probably not, because it was in stealth, and I know that wasn't funny, but okay, you can at least try to laugh at it. It's a Subtlety Rogue. And the main reason that I think Subtlety Rogue is amazing right now is because it can just completely KO somebody with Echoing Reprimand, and it's amazing one-shot during Shadowy Duel. You just completely take somebody out of the fight. If you know what you're doing with this specialization, you will absolutely have an amazing time. I think one of its strongest things at the moment in competitive 3v3 to carry is the kidney shot into sap on a healer. You really don't even need to really be in comms at that point, because your mage is just chilling, pop and combust while you're doing all the crowd control work. They're going to love you. I don't see enough Subtlety Rogues, honestly. It seems like still a lot of rogues are going for Assassination. I think, again, it's probably because Assassination is just kind of do damage and avoid death for most of the fight, and it's a little bit simpler in that sense. But when you nail down what you need to do with Subtlety Rogue, you will absolutely erase anybody in the game. I would legitimately debate whether or not it's actually the best specialization at the moment competitively. We really got to start to see it shining when Waz played it recently in the AWC with the Rogue Mage Resto Druid, and it's getting a little bit more popular, a little bit, but I really don't feel like we're seeing enough of them. It still comes in at number 4 just because of the difficulty. There's like a bit of a barrier to figure out when you need to time all of your cooldowns, but if you're willing to get through that, at the end of that, you are going to feel fantastic. Again, in random battlegrounds, still going to have a great situation there where you're picking up 1v1s, you're able to escape from fights thanks to a conduit that provides you a shield whenever you enter stealth. You're not going to be found a lot of the times because of that. Having immunities like Cloak of Shadows to magic and evasion for physical means you can do all-ins and win a lot of 1v1s. And when you're not winning, just get out. It's a great solo PvP spec to pick up at the moment. And maybe the drawback would be needing voice comms a little bit more because it's a solo PvP list. But coming in at number 3, some people might be surprised that this one's only coming at number 3 at the moment. But we'll talk about it, and that's the Windwalker Monk. The reason that this one's not coming in at number 1 in my mind is because it's limited in its fragility. You can sometimes get overwhelmed and absolutely bonked by a lot of the burst damage in the game, but at the same time, you can also do the bonking. With Spinning Crane Kick at the moment doing massive damage, although getting nerfed now, moving forward to the 9.1.5. A little bit uncertain as to whether or not that will actually be enough to completely KO the spec from existence. It will KO every other spec from existence. Windwalker's always been probably the best dueling spec, maybe on par with Subtlety Rogue in terms of 1 versus 1, but in random battlegrounds you can maybe get swarmed. That's again where the fragility is. You need to always be aware of where your portal is so that you can escape. That's your main mechanism for surviving, is your movement. So make sure that you're keeping track of your rolls, keeping track of your portal, so that it's always in a good position so you can escape. But if you're doing that, you can go in, punch away, get a kill, port, get out of there, heal yourself back up, move back in, get another kill, get out of there. You will hard carry in 2v2. You will hard carry on this spec. In 3v3, in LFG, you'll be very desirable. Probably fall off though again in Battlegrounds just because you can get swarmed, but even in Battlegrounds, I'm seeing Windwalkers top the meter. It's an insane spec. Main drawback is its fragility. Moving forward into the number 2 slot is the Retribution Paladin. And in my mind, the Retribution Paladin, the reason it comes here as a solo PvP spec is because it's a little bit more newbie friendly in my mind than the Subtlety Rogue or the Windwalker Monk. It's much more straightforward. Build holy power, spend holy power. You're not too worried about anything else. Just beeline in a straight line, pop that Shield of Vengeance, and watch the enemies explode it and really regret their choices that they've made throughout their gaming session, because once they've exploded a Shield of Vengeance, when Avenging Wrath and Seraphim are up, they're not getting back up. I'm sorry, they're just not getting back up. And if they do manage to get back up, you're just going to Divine Shield. So having the ability to immune yourself to damage, run in and absolutely turn the tables of a fight with Shield of Vengeance, and your massive cooldown damage with Divine Toll, and possibly some options with Night Fae. I've seen a Rex Troy video. I don't know if that's 100% legit in competitive play. And Necrolord as well, getting some pretty significant buffs. You might have more Covenant flexibility as well moving forward. But if you want a more straightforward spec, then Rep Paladin's where you want to go. Doesn't have the drawbacks like Enhancement, because you can always generate holy power. You're really not limited in that regard. And then when you need to shift that holy power to offense during your cooldowns, you're still going to be able to generate it pretty easily. Main drawback for this one is mobility. And that's the main thing that prevents it from being number 1 on my list here. And number 1 moving forward, can you guess it? Can you guess it? Can you ring the bell? Can you ding it? Can you ding the gong? All right, here we go. Number 1 is the Feral Druid, especially as Necrolord. If you're a Necrolord Feral Druid, I don't think it's possible for you to die. I legitimately think you have more than 9 lives. You are immortal on this specialization at the moment. You won't deal necessarily the top scoreboard damage in a random battleground, for example, but you're pretty much going to win every 1v1. Your healing is instant cast. It's resourceless. You have passive kind of automatic healing effects through conduits with frenzied regeneration. You have multiple defensive cooldown options. Feral Druid went from previous expansions of being kind of made out of glass to being a tank. And I've played a tank, so I can tell you what it feels like to be a tank. This thing is a tank. Feral Druid may as well be recategorized because it is borderline impossible to kill. You have, again, the Jungle Cleave composition for competitive play in 3v3. In 2v2, you're one of the most desirable specs, again, because you can support your team with your utility. You have crowd control. You have unending mobility. You have unending off heals, which are getting looked at, tweaked a little bit in 9.1.5, but I'm not certain it's going to really be enough to knock Feral Druid off this place. But if you want to make sure, definitely make sure you subscribe to the channel so that video will come to you live. But you cannot go wrong with Feral Druid at the moment. And not to mention that it has an insane skill cap in terms of allocating where you want to put your combo points, your bleeds. You want to go for spread damage, focus damage. You're going to have a really good time with it. You cannot go wrong with this specialization. It fits in everywhere. Let's say you start to fall off towards Bouncer and Guardian Druid when it comes to rated battlegrounds, but if you're not worried about that, you're more worried about the kind of the solo group play in 2v2, 3v3, or random battlegrounds, dueling, that kind of stuff, world PvP, like this, you're not going to go wrong. You got the stealth advantages like the Subtlety Rogue. If a fight's not going your way, you get out of there. You're way more tanky, way more durable, even through stuns. And that's, in my mind, what really brings Feral Druid up to the top here. You also combo for what could arguably be the best combo in the game, or one of the best, because it's kind of rock, paper, scissors at the top. The Hunter, the Feral, and the Priest in 3v3. But other than that, that's my number 1. What do you think of my list? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments down below. Did I completely miss a spec that you think deserves to be on the top 10? It was really tough when you got like 30 plus specs to fit them down into 10 and then trying to organize them and categorize them. But I did to the best of my ability here so that you can use this as a resource for your spec selection right now, because I know a lot of us are probably playing by ourselves in Shadowlands 9.1. So this is going to be a great list for you to try out or work towards for having a character if you're interested in solo PvP. Other than that, thank you very much for watching the video. If you liked it, please leave it a thumbs up. And again, comment down below with your thoughts. If you'd like to follow me on twitch.tv/Supatease, I'm streaming there live. I'm doing my best to be on there every morning. So if you'd like some epic commentary or some freestyle rap, then that's going to be where I kind of let loose a lot more than here. Other than that, thank you very much for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.